Hello, listeners. Welcome to another exciting episode on Azure On Air. 81% of enterprises have reported that they have a multi cloud strategy already laid out or in the works. By the end of 2021, 67% of all enterprise infrastructure will be cloud based. It is reported that 82% of the workload will reside on the cloud. All these facts clearly define that cloud computing is the most trending buzzword now. If you're not sure what it is, no worries. Let me explain it to you. Cloud computing uses computing services such as storage, software, networks, and databases over the internet or the cloud. I'm sure this definition would have triggered multiple other questions in your mind, and I have got an expert in this field to answer all our questions. Please join me in welcoming Dave Rendon. Dave has got more than a decade of experience with strong focus on Microsoft technologies and Azure since 2010. With his expertise, he enables professionals to add value to their business, taking advantage of Microsoft Cloud and AI advancements. Appreciating his contributions to the community, Microsoft has awarded him the most prestigious Microsoft Azure MVP Award for 8 consecutive years.
Cloud migration involves multiple topics. Cost reduction is one of the key pillars when any organization considers the migration to the cloud. The availability of the services is also a key pillar when considering cloud migration. The integration with new technologies is key to drive success in any organization, right?
We are glad to have you on our show. Dave, welcome.
Thank you, Aji, and thank you, Amrita, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here today with you.
We are glad. We are indeed excited to have you on our show, and I appreciate your efforts in going to answer all our questions about cloud computing.
Absolutely.
So, Dave, I'm sure you are engaged with a number of business enterprises across various domains. What are the key benefits? Why do they migrate to the cloud?
Thank you, Ajan. That's an interesting question, actually, because cloud migration involves multiple topics in here and includes the ability to stay agile and adapt to every situation that any organization can have in any specific moment, right? But I would probably try to resume in three or four key pillars, starting by cost management, right? So when
Mm,
you migrate to the cloud, basically you are trying to outsource the resources that you have on-prem already, right?
mm,
And cost reduction is one of the key pillars when any organization considers the migration to the cloud,
mm,
because they are going to be able to manage all the services on a usually pay-as-you-go model, right? So
mm,
that's a more flexible model to handle all the IT assets, but also because we are spinning up services as needed and
mm,
on demand, right? So we're gonna be able to see an increase on the productivity from all the organization and not only the IT teams, right? And also to improve the security of all the IT assets, right?
mm,
So, for instance, in Azure we have the um, Azure Security Center service, we have Azure Defender,
mm,
and then we have full ecosystem of services that we can leverage for our existing infrastructure as well.
mm,
Um, and also just to add on top of these pillars, I will say the availability of the services is also a key pillar when considering cloud migration, right? So
Mm,
traditionally, in the past decade, um, organizations had to invest a lot in hardware and probably co-location services to improve or achieve high availability of all the services and applications running in a traditional data center, right? And
mm,
with Azure, for instance, we can leverage some specific services to increase availability and also achieve the level of resiliency that the application of a
mm.
given organizations need to have, right? So
Yes.
yeah, I will resume in those pillars
Mhm.
the key benefits of migrating to cloud.
Exactly. So I simply need not worry about the security, reliability, or scalability facts. And all above, I get the benefit of cost reduction. That's wonderful to put together. Yeah. So I actually can map all these non-functional requirements against multiple business domains. Right, Dave. So what are some key prominent industries that are looking to spend most on cloud computing as we proceed further?
Right, and given the current situation that we are all in this pandemic,
Mm,
I will say primarily education, right?
mhm,
Including some countries that weren't really taking advantage of the communication services available from a Microsoft portfolio standpoint, right? So I will
mm,
say education, also healthcare.
mhm,
Um, we have seen a lot of new mixed reality services available
mm,
to improve these services, right? Manufacturing also will be another industry, and not to mention, for instance, all the advancements and enhancements with regards to financial institutions,
mhm,
where they now are adopting these new technologies like blockchain and so on to
mm,
improve the quality of the service for its customers, right?
mhm,
And I will lastly add probably automotive as well.
mhm,
That's also an industry that has been improving in the last few years,
mhm.
and they are taking advantage of these new services and mostly available through cloud technologies.
Exactly. So we have to agree that considering the current situation, our end users are more on remote and we are more responsible to deliver them the expected experience by making use of uh, advancements in technologies like this. Yeah.
Right. And just to add on top of this,
Mm,
I would probably say also a key technology
mm,
in the past few years, at least in some of the countries on this side of the pond, it
mm,
will be the IoT adoption, right?
mm, mm,
I was talking the other day with the um, a friend of mine,
mm,
Francisco
mm,
Corona. He's
mhm,
the director of cloud services for Mexico in
mhm,
Microsoft,
mhm,
and we were discussing a really interesting case study
mhm,
about IoT adoption
mhm,
in Mexico, where this customer really adopted all the components from the IoT standpoint from Microsoft
mhm,
and leverage that to improve not only productivity across the organization, but also be able to predict um, the upcoming challenges for next year, right? So
mm,
they were able to implement IoT and
mhm,
also leverage some drones in there to monitor all their assets, right? So that's a really interesting case, and I will make sure that you have
mm.
the link to this case study in case that
Wonderful.
our listeners want to take a look at it.
Wonderful. Well, that would be really helpful, Dave. In fact, I would like to add on to this, saying that, say, with the abstraction of complexities involved in these modern applications, we are enabled to innovate by consuming Microsoft Azure services like IoT hubs, isn't it?
Right, and I would say that's an interesting point of discussion. Not sure if you had the opportunity, I believe it was last week, to
Mm-hmm.
jump in on the call with on the announcement on the quarterly earnings for Microsoft. And I mean, communication services, cloud adoptions, and also uh, the integration with new technologies is key for to drive success in any organization, right?
Exactly.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would like to mention some of these challenges that organizations may face when they migrate to the cloud, right? And some of them probably, um, and I will say the most important one from a technical standpoint, and you are aware of this also, it is the um, lack of the right skills
Mm-hmm.
for the cloud, right? And for that, I would like to share with our listeners also two tips in here.
Mm-hmm.
One is to take a look at the cloud adoption framework for Azure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which is basically a collection of documentation, guidance, best practices, and tools to design um, an application in the cloud, right? And the other one is the Microsoft Azure Well Architected Framework. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
which is part of this cloud migration strategy, basically. But the Azure Well Architected Framework basically provides you with a set of guidance and assets that you can use to improve the quality of any workload that any organization is looking to run in the cloud, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, if there's an organization looking to move SAP to Azure,
Mm-hmm.
or more simple applications like just a PHP based application to Azure, then they can find through the Azure Well Architected Framework some references, use cases, best practices to deploy this application in the cloud and improve the quality and performance of the application as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's an important question in here that I receive a lot from customers, and probably is not directly attached to the technical side of adopting the cloud,
Mm-hmm.
but also how to really have all the members of the IT team and additional teams in the organization to um, adopt really the cloud, right? There's resistance to adopt new cloud services in any organization, right?
Exactly.
And this
Any
means
new
that we need to,
technology for that matter.
right? And
Yeah.
I will say we really need to take the leadership team of
Mm-hmm.
any organization to really sponsor this transition to the cloud, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need leaders to really talk to the teams across the organization
Mm-hmm.
and try to, you know, improve the communication across the organizational teams to really try to leverage new technologies in the cloud. I
Mm-hmm.
will say that's a key point when we talk about cloud migration, right?
Exactly. So you are recommending a top-down approach. That is, the leadership team should clearly understand the advantages behind adopting to cloud, and then they should take the responsibility to enable the respective teams with the right skill set to have a smooth migration process. If I have got it right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So, when you have worked with different enterprises, Dave, have you observed any common challenges at the enterprise level that stops them from migrating the cloud?
Right. And to be honest and transparent with you, sometimes we
Hmm.
really have to analyze if, first of all, if there are the right skills, right tools,
Hmm.
and preparation to migrate to the cloud, right? So it's not only about technical skills,
Hmm.
but also to leverage all the, let's say, a base knowledge to move to the cloud as well.
Hmm.
And with regards to this, also it is important to analyze, and you mentioned this earlier, but have the
Hmm.
analysis of the requirements that are needed to run the application in the cloud, because not all of the applications that are currently running on premises are 100% matched to move to the cloud, right? So
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
need to analyze all the core components of the application, dependencies, and so on before we can fully migrate to the cloud.
Hmm.
And for that, there are multiple ways to migrate to the cloud, and we can discuss probably this on a different podcast. But um,
Hmm. Exactly.
traditionally organizations look for an IaaS, or infrastructure as a service movement to the
Hmm.
cloud, right? So
Hmm.
instead of going directly into a PaaS or platform as a service approach,
Hmm.
they want to start slowly by migrating the existing workloads on top of virtual machines, and from there taking on a PaaS or SaaS approach, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Now, I will say that Microsoft has done a very good job in addressing the top challenges
Mhm.
for any organization that is looking to move to any cloud provider, right?
Hmm.
So they need to have a base knowledge across all the cloud providers, including AWS, Azure, GCP, and so on, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I've seen really good improvement on the Microsoft documentation
Hmm.
on how to migrate any specific workload to the cloud, and that's great to see, because if you take, for instance, a any IT organization,
Hmm.
right, that is looking for the benefits of any cloud provider, they need to have the right documentation,
Exactly.
and they need to be able to learn also new skills.
Hmm.
And the MS Docs Pro plus the Microsoft Learn platform,
Mhm.
I will say that's um, a must go resource in case you're looking
Mhm.
into the Azure cloud.
Exactly. So here I would also like to add my interaction with a number of my customers who have their Bistock footprint. And Microsoft's Bistock Migrator is a free open source command line tool that simplifies and automates the conversion of Bistock applications to Azure integration services. So this transition is happening. We will have to identify the right candidates in our enterprise application that can be safely moved to cloud, and we can make utilization of the tools available to facilitate this process. Am I right, Dave?
Right, exactly, Angie. And I would probably add, uh, one of the benefits of migrating to cloud is
Hmm.
automation. And automation is
Hmm.
key for any cloud provider at all, right? So
Hmm.
um, there's makes no sense to stay with the existing IT assets on premises.
Hmm.
And if you're planning to run like 24 by 7 workloads
Hmm.
without any optimization, then makes no sense for you to migrate to the cloud, right? So um,
Exactly. Hmm.
and I know that you work on the automation also. So yeah, I just wanted to bring this up. And Azure has been improving a lot the um, automation services in the cloud,
Hmm.
not only with regards to the pure components in Azure, but also with an infrastructure as code approach, right? So now, not only we have the ARM templates through Resource Manager, but there is this a new language for ARM templates, which is Bicep, and will help us automate all the infrastructure in the cloud as well. And includes also the integration services. functions, serverless approach, and so
Mhm.
on.
Exactly. Yes, taking advantage of automation, we can indeed achieve real efficiency, the productivity that we intend to get. Yes. So, what are your recommendations, Dave, to those who are considering the cloud adoption?
Right, G. And I will say, first of all,
Mm,
start with your profile, right? Whether if you're an IT admin or a system administrator,
mm,
whether if you're a developer, right, or if you're on the operation side. I will say we can start with the baseline on
mm,
the Azure Fundamentals approach, just for you to learn all the um, principal or core services available in Azure.
mhm,
From there, you can start digging a bit more on additional components depending on your workload. So, if you're looking, for instance, for an IoT approach, then there are many new IoT um, Microsoft Learn paths in the Microsoft Learn platform with regards to IoT. But you can also find multiple Learn paths depending on your profile, right?
mm, mm,
And once you gain these skills in Azure, then um, and probably this might sound a bit repetitive, but
mhm,
practice is the key
mm,
to really achieve your goals in the cloud, right? So you can practice through different approaches. I mean, you can use Microsoft Learn. You can have your own Azure subscription and perform your own hands-on, right? And I will also recommend you a lot the Azure Well Architected Framework,
mm,
and review also the technical communities out there.
mm,
Um, and lastly, I will recommend you to take a look at the um, Microsoft Azure Implementation and Strategy,
mhm,
the fourth edition, which I was able to co-author with other members globally from the MVP community,
mhm,
and that will give you an idea on. And this is a free ebook from Microsoft, right?
mhm,
And this will give you a high level overview of the core services and fundamentals on Azure, right?
mhm,
And lastly, as you mentioned earlier, Eji,
mhm,
the security piece
mm,
of Azure is gonna really blow your mind. There has been a lot of improvements with regards to Azure Security Center, so I
mhm,
will strongly recommend you to take a look at those services, starting with regards to the Azure Security Center,
mhm.
then um, analyze how you can protect your assets in the cloud and on premises, right? And there's also a specific technical community with regards to Azure Security.
Yes, that's wonderful set of resources, Dave, and very good start point for everyone who's considering cloud adoption as an individual. Thanks for enabling us with the right sources of Azure learning. So, Dave, thanks for answering all our questions so patiently. It was such an useful session with so much of information. We are going to make sure that all these URLs are provided to make to enable the listeners best use of this recording. Thank you,
Great,
Dave.
Eji and Amrita. And I again thank you for the invite for this session, and really look forward for the next episode.
Yes, Dave. So, in the upcoming episodes, let us dive deeper into a specific topic that was going to be beneficial for the enterprises around. And thank you so much for joining us on our show.
Cove.co